Thank you. Oop. Okay. No more smart enough. That means you, Ann. So we're waiting for Warren, who I know knows the right time. And then after that, I'm not completely sure. Marty, I've been thinking about our conversation a lot over the last few hours.
I'm listening.
I know you are. Well, let's wait till as many people come on as can, but we're either in an ever-growing position or we're getting taken advantage of, and I can't quite decide which of those two options exist. But I did have a conversation with Mark Graminsky about Wildercliff. He's leaving after tomorrow to go away. He's riding in an Ironman event, and he will not be back until for a week.
Mm-hmm.
And so I told him, as Melody has also, that there will be significant pushback from the committee, would be my guess, and also from the planning board. And he said, I know, Melody told me. So there you have it.
Is he going to get the updated archaeology report to us before he goes
Yes,
away?
he put that in charge of Larry, whatever Larry Garrett, I think his name is Garrettson, to get to us. You mean including where they want to put the playhouse, right?
Right. It sounded as though that was the last thing that they needed to
Yeah,
do.
it
I don't know
is.
why they're putting it so far away, but maybe they
I
want to
know.
look at it.
It's
Who
just
knows?
maybe because they don't like it and they don't want to, I'm not completely certain, but it seems like such a simple thing not to take on as a battle.
Right.
Let us leave it alone, right? But who knows?
Looks like everybody's here. Sebastian's still joining.
Okay.
I'm
Are we
here.
gonna wait?
Otherwise,
bit?
you're ready to
Here
go.
comes Sebastian.
I'm here.
There he is. All
Yeah.
right. Thank you, you guys, for putting up with my the fact I can't tell time. I appreciate it. And so before we delve into the business of the meeting, can I have a motion to approve Sebastian's minutes from the last meeting?
I so move.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you, Sebastian. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And all right, so I think Warren and I both agree that the main thrust of this particular meeting really has to deal with the current two large assignments that have come the committee's way, number one. And then number two, after we move through these two, which would be Wildercliff and the McLeod project or Wartenberg Road, there are at least two and maybe three others, I want to warn you guys, are coming our way. So big ones. So why not, because I feel as though the one that carries sort of the most, albeit not our fault, time pressure is Wildercliff. Why don't I open the discussion with regard to that, those two projects, and then we'll move on to other things you guys would like to talk about. But I don't know who wants to go first, whether it's Marty or it's Ann or Warren or whoever. You want to go first, Marty?
I'm okay. If we have everyone's support, I think we dig our heels in. As I said to you, Kathy, when we spoke earlier today, it's unfortunate, but had they been more cooperative along the way, we had more leeway. As we've gotten more information, they have less leeway. And so first, let's start with the Playhouse, which is small, but it's a very significant structure. It's a rare survival. And we now have documentation that we didn't have from the nomination form of where it was. And so unless there is a compelling reason for them to move it, like a major sewer line coming through or a freight train, my reaction is it is part of the domestic ensemble of the house. It is a complement of the house where their children played. It is not a toll house. It is not a gatehouse, okay? And there's no reason to move it. That's A. And as you were saying a few moments ago, Kathy, perhaps they don't like it and don't want to put the money in to get it right. So if you stick it somewhere out in Siberia, you're not staring at it. But I'm not really in favor of it being moved, and they haven't given us any justification to it being moved except they don't like it there. So that's A, and that's the small one.
Mark,
Oh, hey,
And Nancy,
hi. I don't think that it's in the location that's shown on the application. I think it has been moved to
Where?
the current location.
you're saying it is not in the location that was on the nomination form for the,
That's what my impression is, that it was closer to the driveway from Mill Road.
so you've given that more study, but I still will stand by the thing. It can either stay where it is because it is there, or it should be moved back to the location that we have documented. I
Yeah.
don't think they should be able to put it wherever they want. That's A, but that's the small one.
I see.
Marty, before we leave that, can I just interject? I don't know if we have evidence that where it was shown in the National Register documentation is actually where it had always been. One might surmise that people weren't moving buildings before 1976, but in fact, buildings were moved for a long time. So I don't know if Nancy or anyone else has any information to confirm that where it's shown, whether it's the current location or where it was shown in 1976, is in fact the original location.
First of all, 35 years is the threshold, generally speaking, for anything having historic, shall we say, gravity or presence. So it's been there sufficiently long. And again, I think they can come up with additional information if they care to do the research of where it can go. And if they want to dispute that, that's fine, but let's dispute things on fact. All we have is the documentation of the nomination and the documentation of where it is right now.
Right.
If they have documentation of something else, I think that's fine. We're all eyes to see it. But if they don't, we can only rely upon the information we have. I know Nancy's looked at some atlases and no other buildings show up because we had that discussion early on.
Right.
I also looked at teal survey maps and I do not see anything on them.
Right.
And
nothing in terms of the Playhouse at all, or no?
No,
Well,
they were doing mainly the exterior survey of the property and not of the buildings on the property.
And I will add to that, Nancy, and people like Charles have a lot to do with this. But having been doing this for 50 years ago, outbuildings were meaningless. And they were frequently overlooked and whatever.
Mhm.
Our take on it right now is far different. And that's what we're working with, today's standards, where
Yeah.
the outbuildings are part of the total.
Okay,
So,
well, Marty, let's go on to the rest of it and
yeah,
come
so
back to,
the barn.
yeah, well, there you go.
The barn is the big thing. We can refer them to the Secretary of Interior standards on barns, so it is not arbitrary. And they should not be loading it with windows. It says it very explicitly. And nor should they be doing wholesale destruction of historic fabric. I think from the very first time we were there, I said, you know, there's no harm in putting another building on this property. And there isn't, because they had multiple buildings. However, it's a pretty radical change to that building. They're changing 2 of the 4 facades, and they're changing the 2 facades that have the greatest historic integrity. So my reaction is, obviously it's up to planning to determine that, but that we should say that it is not acceptable to change the 2 facades with the greatest integrity, and that it is against the Secretary of Interior standards for treatments of barns. I mean, how does anyone feel about that?
So the identification of those being the 2 facades with the most integrity, historical integrity, are because?
Well, because the side to the left, when you're facing the front, was totally a later addition. So we know where their kitchen and their bar are, was a later addition. With historic meaning, but a later addition. So we know that that's incorrect. And we know, and I pointed out to them when we were in the barn, and we looked at the truss up in the attic where the original opening was, which is that whole bathroom and little entry foyer that they have is an addition to the original structure. So the front has been pushed out and one side has been covered completely, which means that you have 2 sides left. The back, which they're putting a deck, a fireplace, and windows on, which I could almost live with, but I won't say that, and blowing out the entire original stall area, which is the principal defining characteristic of a carriage house, because that's how horse stalls were treated and still are. So those are the 2 elevations they're changing.
Okay, so are you done? Or
I'm
can
done.
I? Okay.
Sure.
So, and it doesn't mean that I'm the one who gets to ask these questions all the time. Feel free to weigh in, you guys. But I would tell you that, well, first of all, I'll tell you 2 things. I had sort of promised to let Fred go at about 4:45. So we want to move along expeditiously.
It doesn't matter. I
Okay.
don't have anything at 5.
Okay.
You're good till whenever.
All right.
They're taking
Well,
your time.
you have the 6 o'clock, right?
Yeah, but 6 o'clock. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah,
So, I guess what I think we have to start taking into account as a committee and or as a board or whatever is the range of authority that we have,
Very much so.
and when do we use that authority? What are the various rationales that sort of become standards for us, if you want protocols or whatever, because we have these 2 large projects before us now. There are 4 more coming of equal merit and almost bigger in terms of, impact on this community as a whole, or Rhinebeck as a whole. So I think this is a good time to take stock of when we got involved, how we, a committee, got involved, what are the resources and the capabilities that this committee has? And then 4, what is the range, or what are the range of options that we can employ, if any, that will make a difference? I will tell you that Melody has said to Mark Graminsky, the committee is unfavorably disposed, and so are some of the planning board members. So they expect something to come down on them that, frankly, I feel like it could have been avoided, or at least it could have been with more clarity had they not been so problematic to deal with. And I think there's lessons on both sides of the line here, what we have to learn and offer, and what an applicant has to learn and listen to, for want of a better word. That was, I didn't need to go on that long, but I think it's like a starting point here. And Marty, your draft report, I think, is kind of like a shot over the bow. It's the first one that it, and please stop me, particularly Warren, stop me when you feel I'm exaggerating, but I don't think so. I think this is a very important moment, both for the committee and also for the committee in relationship to the planning board, because as Warren has been saying over the last few months, they're leaning on us almost in a way to do work that maybe the board would have otherwise done without the existence of the committee. And so that's a whole other thing we have to take into account. All right, I'm through.
So I think Marty was absolutely correct that any remarks we make about the Wilder Cliff project, and specifically the barn, but it applies to the playhouse too, need to cite the Secretary of the Interior standards, which are still the gold standard, if you will, for how we treat historic structures and historic properties. And once we do that, then sort of we have to bear that in mind for subsequent applications, which obviously we would do. But it's very important that this be articulated in a way that the applicant and their representatives understand that this is not targeted at them specifically for this project as much as it is, here are the standards that we work with within historic preservation. They don't seem to be applied or understood here. And we've asked you to take another look, and we still think you need to take another look, because we're having a lot of problem with what you're proposing to do with this historic structure, a very important, well-known property within the town of Rhinebeck. And as Marty notes, 2 relatively untouched facades, perhaps not the most visible facades, but still significant. And the fact that the stable block is intact at the northern end of that carriage house barn is very significant. I mean, it's amazingly intact, and the thought that it's going to be ripped out to provide parking, even if they're providing the stall barriers in between, it's kind of pointless. It's like, why not just build another building and avoid all these issues?
Marty, have we ever shared with them being the applicant and his or their team, the standards?
Well,
No, we haven't, have we?
first of all, we haven't. When you have a consultant on these things, this is like our bringing up the building code.
Right.
These people are being paid, and they either shouldn't be working on the project or they should know. And if this architect professes to be familiar with this stuff, then he should be well aware of it.
He doesn't have a clue, and neither does Larry.
Well, I understand,
Nor
but I'm
concern.
saying it's very unprofessional for us to say they don't have a clue.
Okay, well, cut that out of the recording, Fred.
Chris Hines has to be the one who realizes that he's not getting the support that he needs. I think the issue really is, as Warren said, it is the Secretary of Interior standards. What I would like to point up that I don't know how we make clear to someone, because it is the gray area in what we can bring so much to this process. You don't expect as a preservation group to get everything. We're not trying to embalm these buildings. We're trying to work with people so that the essence of the building is preserved. And, you know, we can give in some places, if you give us things that we try and point out what's important, and they should be saying, aha, this is meaningful to the historic people. Maybe we can do this, or maybe we can't. Okay, maybe we can get this part of the project. Maybe we can get dormers on the front, but such and such is a third rail. And that's a matter of interpretation. And I think even for planning, they have to realize it's like, and I don't mean to go there, but on the McLeod project, I said, I can give on the side openings of the house on my memo. I never believe original openings should be moved. But if we can save the front, which is very important, we may have to give a little. So I don't know how we tell these people. It shouldn't be rocket science to them. With historic buildings, there is always interpretation. Even with a building inspector, the building inspector is given latitude to interpret code on historic properties. It is all about sorting out, and they don't have that figured out. And I don't know how to nicely tell them. This is a process. It's not right. It's not wrong. You take the standards and we try and work with them to your particular building or property.
Okay, I don't even know where to start with all that.
I'm sorry.
No, it's not. I mean, I really don't know where to start. Maybe Warren does, or Nancy does, or whatever, but I think the problem is, and somebody correct me if you think I'm wrong, that this committee from the get-go with regard to both, well, no, actually with regard only to Wildercliff, had no sense of authority from the applicant or the applicant's team. They just, I think they're going to be shocked when they hear what Mark Rominsky is warning them is going to happen. I think they'll be shocked because they had this sense that this is their property and they're going to do what they want to, and they have an architect in of whatever that guy Larry is, telling them, okay, fine, how about all this? And nobody ever said, this is the weight of what you have here, pay attention. Nobody ever really did until your report, wait, let me finish, until your report when you do the draft and we send it on.
I think the issue is that for some time, and it isn't Chris Heinz's fault or anyone's fault, but this stuff has not been enforced. It's been there forever. And so
It's true.
this is like getting caught in a speed trap, okay? And you say everyone is speeding. Well, you're the one who got caught. And I don't mean to be that arbitrary. These rules have always been there. He bought a historic property. When we catch our breath, we've got to educate realtors and stuff like that, that there are strings, because Chris should say to his realtor, I wish you had told me. And I wish people would start pushing back, but that's not where we are.
Okay, yeah, but here, like I said at the beginning of this discussion, I do think we're at a turning point. I do, Nancy, I'm hoping you agree. We're really finally at the point where somebody is going to get told no. I think that's what's going to happen. And it is dependent upon how the committee puts out its report, what it says, why it says what it does, and move forward. I think the other problem for Chris and Laura Heights is somebody wrecked the hell out of the house.
Yes.
Done, ruined, whatever. And so they probably think, well, look how beautiful this is. We can do whatever we want. Well, there you go. As you say, they're getting caught in a speed trap. Okay, where are we? Let's keep moving along.
Well, I think we are probably going to be making progress with 531 Wurtemberg Road. And in this case, we're not talking about the main residence on the property. We're talking about outbuildings. So we're going to attempt to make as much progress as we can. But I don't think we should feel as bad as we would if they were doing something directly with the house.
You mean Wurtemberg Road?
No, or with either.
With
Oh,
the-
okay.
I agree with what you're saying, Nancy, although interestingly enough, the way all of it is written, you can never be required to restore something that is no longer there. You're
Mhm.
only dealing with, which is unfortunate,
Mhm.
you're only dealing with historic fabric. So it is our role to preserve whatever we can of that
Okay.
property. And I think that's what we're trying to do. I think what Warren said, going back, this property, I think we should state that the property has been designated, and I'm going to lean on you, Nancy, just so I don't have to look it all up because I've got to turn it around. But this property was designated as of a certain date, which was what, 79?
I thought we had said
When
70.
was the multiple resource done?
I think the research was done earlier, but I don't know that the date, was actually designated by the Secretary of Interior was later.
Well, it's on the form that Nancy provided us.
Yeah.
Okay. So I keep looking for a way for us to keep moving forward in a meaningful way. And I think number one, the draft of a report from Marty, thank you very much, Marty, for throwing yourself on the pyre, is important to get done as quickly as possible, number one. And then number two, Wurtemberg Road, same deal. And then number three, go back and revisit how we got where we are. How do we, I don't think any of it, well, I sure didn't think that people would come to look at this committee as having all this input and authority before.
Well, I think that that's terrific. And I think it largely goes to our chairs, but as Melody said to me the one time I met with her, we have an incredible group together in terms of skill set. And what's happening is we're bringing in all of these dimensions that no one has ever considered. And it's like never having eaten a certain kind of food or had a certain kind of wine. Suddenly it's all offered to you. And it's like when TV went in color. So it doesn't.
Or the times went in color. What the hell is that all about?
Well, we won't go there, but
Yeah.
can't roll back progress or whatever. I think the issue is that looking at it positively is that we've proved that we can bring a lot of valuable material to the community that they don't have to even pay for, and that this is invaluable. And so it's probably the best recognition we're going to get. And since recognition is not important, it's the goal of saving these
Okay.
houses, it's win-win.
Okay, so Dan, back to how we looked at this at the beginning of the meeting, and that is that this feels to me like a line in the sand. It feels to me like a starting point that the presentation of these two reports to the applicant and to the planning board after draft form will, for the first time, create a sense of authority that we haven't asked for before. If anybody could give me an example that we have. We haven't asked for it before. Have we, Warren? Help me with this.
Not this committee, no.
No. So we better be ready to take it on the next time it comes up, because it's coming up soon. There's Grassmere, as Nancy knows this. There's Slate Dock Road. There's the Rhine Cliff Hotel. Sorry, Warren. There's the Rhine Cliff Hotel and what their intent is on Grinnell, which is significant, or what they would like. There's at the end of Buttonwood and between Buttonwood and Bolenbecker. So these things are going to come repeatedly on us. And I want us to start creating a kind of guideline for that, you know, means people know what to expect from us.
Well, then that brings us back to something that we haven't had the wherewithal to do, but intake procedures.
I know.
Very clear so that people know what we need at the outset, so we don't get things piecemeal. And we shouldn't even be looking at them or giving them our time until they have that.
Okay, so did we figure out there's a place we can steal that from? So we don't have to create it all on our own.
I think I pulled some stuff out of various places that I could go
Okay,
to.
well, when you finish doing all this other stuff, will you mind doing it again?
Yeah, I'll look
Sorry.
and see what I have.
Yeah, okay, that would be great.
I think Marty mostly has an intake form drafted. It was a matter of just kind of putting it together and persuading the planning board or the town board to adopt it.
Okay. Did I already get that and lost it like I did the website stuff too? I think I did.
Yeah, but we just have so much going on. It's really understandable.
Okay,
Have to, and maybe Warren, maybe you and I can discuss those and look at them, and you can help me. I sort of have to be led on this stuff because I get lost in the weeds in case no one's noticed.
okay, so then in order of importance on your time,
Mhm,
it's number one, Wildercliff.
mhm.
If you had time to address Wernberg Road, fine. Yom Kippur, and then whatever you got after that.
Yeah, I think Wartenberg Road, I think we're in terrific shape. If everyone agrees with the memo I sent of giving them a pass on the side windows, but not on the front door, we've done great on everything else we've gotten. And
Okay,
again,
just so long as you draft it carefully and gently, because I think there's a lot for us to be proud of in terms of the work that they did. They're exactly the kind of applicant you want to encourage, right,
oh, I
Marty?
agree. I agree.
Okay,
And
so
I'm
be
hoping-
nice.
That's out of character for me.
We'll try.
I'm hoping when they see the pictures of this thing
Hmm.
and they look, they realize what they have, which is they have something very special and they're
Okay.
trading it for something very common.
Okay, but be nice, all right?
Warren, would you trade your nice car for my Subaru?
Depends.
Yeah, there you go.
I'll speak to you later, Warren.
Yeah.
There
okay.
you go. All right. And you know, I told them, and so did Melody, that this, and Catherine can speak to this better than any of us, that this contractor, the Art of Building, isn't necessarily known for sensitivity to historic fabric. I think that's probably fair to say. They're very design oriented. They're very whatever. And I think that they, correct me if you think I'm wrong, Catherine, I think they've learned an extraordinary lesson here. And they've worked very, very hard to communicate that. They and that architect woman that works for them. And thank you to Nancy Kelly for all the work she put in too, because she really was their key resource and it made a huge difference. So I think we as a committee should be very proud of that. One, encourage that. Two, and three, let people know that the art of building did something here that's pretty extraordinary.
Yeah.
They came off of something we all did not approve of to something we feel pretty good about.
And hopefully we've been educating them so that the next project they work on, they'll
That's
work with us more closely.
That's exactly the point I was trying to make, Nancy. You're absolutely right. And you were extraordinary for them. So thank you for that. Okay, I'm talking too much. Go ahead.
So I think we've covered both of those two applications. We talked a little bit about the intake form. Are there other things we need to review today?
I don't think so.
I mean, we know there was a
Slate dock, you said.
yes, I was gonna say Slate Dock. We visited the site and I think the planning board members visited the site and then the neighbors actually turned up in a planning board meeting and pushed back. So
They did.
presumably that's gonna be revised and resubmitted.
Yeah,
Or we don't know.
and
We don't know.
yeah, no, it is because Robert Murray was asked to provide certain kinds of elevations
Mhm.
and answer questions with regard to the garage, its location in regard to the neighbors who clearly are not happy about it when they showed up at the planning board meeting. So of the things that are going to end up on our plate, that is one that should come up. If not, I think they will not come up on the 20th, but it'll be on the next planning board meeting. Grassmere and Soho House are, well, Grassmere, yes, I think I've told most of you, is already implementing a plan that was approved, I think 6 years ago by the planning board for work on the mansion and creating echo cabins and creating new access and all. They're already at work on that.
Yeah, they
But
are.
so, yeah, they are. But so, and the reason they didn't come to us is because they already got approval 6 years ago.
Were
So,
they asked to do archaeology?
no. Well,
'Cause
not that
that's the
I'm
big-
aware of.
And that's another thing with Slate Dock too. I mean, I said when I was there, and I know Melody listened, that they need to do archaeology,
Yes, they do.
first, and particularly if they don't know where they're gonna put stuff, they're gonna need to do phase one over the whole site.
Yeah, and there was the whole thing, I don't know, I think this didn't get discussed, Warren, when we were on site, but it got discussed at the planning board meeting when they did their first presentation, and that is, they believe they're gonna have to blast rock.
Hmm,
And the neighbors are like, what?
right.
No. Mm-mm.
Right.
So in order to do what they think they want to do, they think they're going to have to blast.
Yeah.
That's a very, I mean, you, Nancy would know, and you guys would know better than me, but apparently it's solid rock over there. So.
Yeah, but they're still gonna have to do archaeology.
Yeah, no, I know that,
terrace-
but
That terrace down there is, highly
sensitive.
sensitive.
Yeah,
Mm.
okay. So anyway, there's that. There is what will happen at Grassmere, which I know they're gonna turn around now and come to us. And
Is this because they have an amended application?
they're gonna put one in
Okay.
that are you talking about Grassmere?
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, they're gonna come in with Soho House.
But they mean, it's not just the ownership that's changing. There's the other changes they want to make that's triggering a re-review or an additional.
It's not
review?
a re-review, it's an expansion on
Okay.
what the first permit allowed them to do.
Right, right.
And I think they just finally, I mean, I don't know this for a fact, but I think that they finally said to Soho House to keep them involved because it's been dragging and dragging and dragging. They said, we're going to go on and start this to show you we can do it. And then we will continue developing the site program with you. And I know that the Soho House attorneys have been talking to Warren Raplansky and, looking to come on in because their first level of approval's got to come
Hey,
from the town board.
Warren, maybe you can help me with this. But generally, in many municipalities that I work in, when you amend a permit or anything, that the document, so to speak, is opened as to the standards at that point. And it isn't a matter of one small part of it, which is the entire project comes under a certain level of review and scrutiny. So for instance, if you got a permit 6 years ago to do something and they required certain aspects of life safety, and those things have changed, you have to bring everything up to the standard that is in force at present. Does
Marty,
that-
I would say that's true. And in general, I advise clients that anytime you have to go back to a planning or a zoning board, but most often planning board, they have the right to ask about any aspect of the project, not just the newly requested or the changed aspects of it. So if you don't want to do that, don't keep changing your plans and going back to the planning board. But anytime you go in, the board is entirely within their rights to ask about any aspect of the project, including things that the client might consider settled.
So thank you, Warren, that being the case, should that point be made, is that we really can't review, we have to look at the entire project, not just aspect that is being submitted now, because it is a site, it is not a partial site, and it's designated as a site.
I
And
think we have to wait, Marty, until we see what they do come back with, and then how and at what point it comes to us. For Warren to answer, I don't see why segmentation is not applicable in this particular situation. Were you on the planning board when it came through the last time?
No, I
Warren?
was not, but the issue of segmentation of a project often comes up. In this particular case, I imagine they could say, hey, we have new investors and they want us to look at something else. I mean, it's not like the planning board can't look at it because it's been segmented.
Right.
But
Okay.
again, the planning board does have the right to revisit the entire project if they choose.
Okay, but I think that one is down there past
Yes.
8 Slate Dock, past Buttonwood, past the two
Yes.
that we're grappling. It's down a way.
I
So,
suspect so. Yeah.
yeah, we don't have to worry about it today, but I think we should be ready.
Yeah.
With protocol by the time it does come around, because
Agreed.
that one's going to be, already has proved to be contentious, and it will be even more so
Right.
the next go around.
Right.
Okay. Anyway,
Just
anything else, guys?
just a note on archaeology. I feel as though Mark Graminsky has gotten the message, and that the projects he works on, he realizes they have to do archaeology. And I see that as being something that needs to be done in general, so that more people, when they bring project up, are aware. I mean, we're talking about our role in terms of these projects, and once more people who are working on these projects understand that this is standard. You know, most people are going to have to do archaeology unless the whole place has been graded or something in the past. It will make our job easier in that particular aspect.
Right. I think Mark Graminsky has really gotten the point. You know, when I was talking to him today, I said, you should have listened to us in the beginning. And he said, I don't have the authority with regard to this situation. It's being run by the client and Larry and whatever that architect's name is. He said, it's not up to me, but I get it. And I've tried to warn them. I've tried to make them listen. So at the very least, Marty, we've made an impact. Are they happy about it? Not really, but too bad. Should have listened. Okay,
Mhm.
all right, so Marty, hang up and go to work.
Yeah, I hear you. I will probably land up, Warren, giving you a call, but let me get some thoughts together. I don't think these memos have to be long. I think they're far enough along that we can just say we've re-reviewed it and reaffirm what we have or ask for something different. So
Right.
I will get started on that.
Thank you so much for being willing to do all that. Anything, Nancy, anything else?
No, just, I do want to make sure that they're using that brochure that I have furnished and making the clients aware that that information is available.
They being the planning board or,
Well, when an applicant comes in,
yeah,
that they're given the information.
yeah. Nancy, I'll just take this 1 second to warn you that the Varelli brothers have figured out that the gates that they have were the original entrance gates to the Astor estate, and they want to put them on Astor Drive together with the sign that was originally there. And Elizabeth said she thought that was a good idea, and go talk to Nancy Kelly.
Hmm.
All right, so they will be coming to you.
So can I ask a question though? And this would take some cooperation, but the point is somehow if we could get the permitting process as such in the town that when someone comes for a building permit application or applies, is that all of these properties should be so marked or designated that they automatically give the person a copy of Nancy's brochure.
Right. You know, I would remind you guys of some progress, right? Which is every time an applicable project comes to the zoning enforcement officer, the building department, or the planning board, we are invited to every pre-conference meeting now, which wasn't true before, number one. We are allowed to make prior site visits and meet with applicants and clients. That wasn't true before. So there is this in that business of including Nancy's pamphlet and everything else already is in the process. So we have made some progress.
And I'm hoping that they're aware that in the code, there is the map that shows all the historic
Yeah.
properties.
Good
And
point.
there's a listing of all the historic properties.
Right. I think Michael is these days pretty good about explaining that to
Okay.
people. And more so than the prior zoning administrator was. So that, you know, for however long he's in that position, he does share all that information.
At some point, we might need to be doing some education with the realtors that work in the area.
Here.
Well, we could try that. I mean, Warren would know better than me and could respond better than I can, but you know what? We present a problem for real estate people.
Yeah, right.
We don't present an opportunity. So they, you know, they're not desperate to hear from us, but we could try. It's worth a go.
Mhm.
Maybe we'll wait until after the election though. Is that okay with you, Nancy?
Okay.
Give it up. Let's have a quiet period for a while.
Mhm.
Okay. Anything else, guys, before we get off? Oh,
Ready to
Marty,
go.
thank you very much and Nancy too, for not bringing up the website. I really appreciate it. I know it's on my plate. Don't think I've forgotten. I wake up in the middle of the night, worry about it. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Adjourn your meeting.
Thanks.
Do I need to vote on it?
Yeah,
Yes.
I have a,
Yeah, it's just like always. It's
Yeah,
Okay, I
Commissioner.
forgot. Come on, I forgot the
Yeah,
time of the
thank-
meeting
Thanks,
too.
Fred. I move we adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, Warren. I
Second
second
motion.
that. All in favor?
Aye,
Aye. Thank you, guys.
thank you.